According to WebMD, no one knows the exact cause of Alzheimer's disease, but scientists do know that genes are involved. For many years, researchers have looked for specific genes that affect how likely you are to get Alzheimer's disease. Genes are the basic building blocks that direct almost every aspect of how you're built and how you work. They're the blueprint that tells your body what color your eyes should be, or if you're likely to get some kind of diseases. You get your genes from your parents. They come grouped in long strands of DNA called chromosomes. Every healthy person is born with 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. Usually, you get one chromosome in each pair from each parent. Alzheimer's disease strikes early and fairly often in some families, often enough that experts single it out as a separate form of the disease. It's called early onset familial Alzheimer's disease. By studying the DNA of these families, researchers have found that many of them have flaws in related genes on chromosomes 1 and 14. A few of the families share a difference in one gene on chromosome 21. In all, 8 different genes have been identified as possible culprits in Alzheimer's. Early onset Alzheimer's is undeniably related to a person's family history. Many scientific discoveries are pointing to a strong link between Alzheimer's disease, genetics, and hereditary risk factors. Alzheimer's disease is becoming known as a complex, multifactorial disorder. Genes control the function of every cell in your body. Some genes determine basic characteristics, such as the color of your eyes and hair. Other genes can make you more likely to develop certain diseases, including Alzheimer's disease. Researchers have identified a number of genes associated with Alzheimer's disease. Some genes increase your likelihood of developing the disease. Others guarantee that you will develop a disease, though these are rare. However, genetic risk factors are just one of the factors involved in getting Alzheimer's disease. The Alzheimer's Association says over the past 30 years, research has linked moderate and severe traumatic brain injury to a greater risk of developing Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia years after the original head injury. One of the key studies showing an increased risk found that older adults with a history of moderate traumatic brain injury had a 2.3 times greater risk of developing Alzheimer's than seniors with no history of head injury, and those with a history of severe traumatic brain injury had a 4.5 times greater risk. Previous research has shown that boxers have an increased risk of CTE, which was originally called dementia pugilistica, or punch-drunk syndrome. The risk of CTE in boxers seems most closely tied to the number of rounds boxed, not to the number of times a boxer was knocked out, suggesting that even repeated mild traumatic brain injuries that don't cause unconsciousness may increase dementia risk. Suzanne M. De La Monte, professor of pathology and laboratory medicine, professor of neurology, professor of neurosurgery, and her team have dubbed Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Dr. De La Monte believes either the pancreas stops creating enough insulin or cells start ignoring the insulin's repeated requests for them to pick up glucose. The latter is a condition known as insulin resistance. With type 3 diabetes, says De La Monte, the problem is insulin resistance in the brain. Alarmingly, she adds, the drug they used to block insulin in the experiment resembles the nitrites found in many processed foods. Because genetic forms of Alzheimer's represent the minority of cases, she says the rapid rise in its prevalence suggests an exposure model of disease. The evidence, she writes, suggests that Alzheimer's is a metabolic disease with virtually all the features of diabetes mellitus, but largely confined to the brain. The findings underscore the importance of psychologists helping clients ditch the junk food and get off the couch, says psychologist Margaret Gatz, Ph.D., whose own research has found diabetes to be a significant risk factor for Alzheimer's. We know that if people observe good habits with respect to diet and exercise, it can make a difference in their risk of diabetes and in turn for their risk of dementia, says Gatz, a professor of psychology, gerontology, and preventative medicine at the University of Southern California. That's another reason psychologists should absolutely be encouraging good health behaviors and helping people make lifestyle changes. Simply put, when enough brain cells die, you get Alzheimer's, regardless of whether it is from trauma or bad eating habits. Normally, your brain uses a little more than 20% of the glucose you get from your food. The main self-treatment in arresting some symptoms, besides avoiding processed foods, is eating plenty of coconut oil and adhering to a ketogenic diet.